Hey guys, welcome back. This is what I got going on here. An absolute mess. I went out and, well, I didn't go anywhere actually. If you guys have seen my last video, I bought the Flysky FS IT4S, which is the follow-up to the Flysky FS IT4. From what I understand, there was a lot of issues with the IT4. From what I can see and what I've read, they've definitely made some upgrades. I mean, the transmitter itself isn't the best looking. I mean, it kind of does look a little cheesy, but it seems to work great. They bind it from the factory, which is something that apparently they don't do or didn't do with the previous version. I saw a lot of videos on, how to bind your receiver. They bind it from the factory. It says that in the, in the instructions. It comes with a disc that has a PDF file on it. So yeah, it was bound. I went ahead and plugged in the servos to the receiver, and first and second channel, throttle, steering, I was good to go. And of course, third channel was the killer RC kill switch. I just had to reverse the third channel and I was able to get that working right away. The instructions are really they're terrible, and that's why I can see now why there's a million videos, not a million, but there's a good amount of videos on the FSIT4 talking about the telemetry and how to hook it up, and every one of them falls short of actually showing you in detail what to do and how to do it. They give you this iBus receiver with all the telemetry, and it really doesn't tell you what the iBus receiver is for. By process of elimination, I was able to figure out I don't need it. This is what it looks like. It's called when it focuses here, the FSCEV04. And from what I can, what I gather, it actually allows channels to be split. It allows the 4 channels that the receiver comes with to be split. These little holes here are actually buttons that can be pressed with a pin, and you can see the power, and then C1, C2, C3, C4, and then K1, K2, K3, K4. The K1 would correspond with the C1. What this is used for, I don't know. The difference between the FS4 and the or IT4 and the IT4S, they used a funny style connector that I'm not familiar with the name of it, but they use that in throughout the entire system. The receiver had the 2 funny looking plugins on it. This here just uses this style throughout. They do give you the other plugs, but it only uses this style throughout the entire setup. So this is not used. A lot of people, the unboxing videos, and I think even in mine, were under the impression that you have to plug all your telemetry in here and then plug this into the receiver pack or into the receiver. That is not the case at all. All the telemetry runs in sequence in a piggybacks to each other, and it simply ends. The sequence ends, or sequence can end, and it does not need a loop back to the receiver. It plugs in one spot on the receiver labeled sense, or SENS for sensor. So basically what you end up having in the end is a big long line of senses. And of course you want to plug them in correlation with where they're going to connect throughout your rig. Now, right off the bat, I tried the voltage sensor, and they give you these 2 little pins that you're able to actually just kind of slide in to the back. I was thinking about maybe slicing one of the wires and sliding it in there like a needle, kind of right in the actual wire. But I noticed right before the power switch, where the battery plugs in over here, I can simply stick them in the back and they stay in there really well. So this particular piece of telemetry, this module, should be able to remain in the actual receiver box, because a lot of the others, of course, are going to have to be outside of the box. So this here is going to have to be in here, packed in nicely with the receiver, the battery, and the Killer RC kill switch, which, if you've seen my previous videos, you'll know I have the speaker for the Killer RC kill switch, and I also have the light, which is connected here. So there's a lot of wiring in there, and it's not going to fit with this cover. Killer RC sells a taller lid. I'm going to go ahead and have to get that lid. It's 35 bucks. In my opinion, it's a bit pricey, but it is what it is. I need it. This lid is not going to work with everything that I want to fit inside the receiver box. So yeah, I mean, the modules can be mounted with double-sided tape. They're really light. It's just a matter of, you know, figuring out where you want to mount them based on how they're going to be set up. Now, as soon as you plug in the modules and you turn on the receiver, transmitter, turn on the receiver, it'll automatically give you, I'm not going to really talk about the settings and all the different things that the transmitter does, because there's a ton of other videos out there already that do. But it gave me a proper battery reading right off the rip, so that was nice. And then the second sensor that I tried was the temperature sensor, so it immediately gave me the temperature in the room, so that I knew was working properly, which was nice. That one there looks like this. Just has a little tiny capacitor looking thing that will give you the temperature. And with the 5th scale gas rig, it's probably best to get it as close to the head or the casing as you can. How I'm actually going to mount it, I don't know yet. I don't know, but it does need to be mounted somewhere along the lines of over here. And so there's that, and mounting it is not, there's just, with this type of upgrade, it's not something that everything's going to be written out for you, so just be expecting that. Then you have your speed sensors, and it comes with two, an optical and a magnetic. Now, the optical would be used for miles per hour, so that you can actually know how fast the rig is going. And you have optical and you have magnetic. Here's the optical sensor, and the optical sensor is set up so that they give you some of this stuff here. It's set up like you would have on a bicycle. If you've ever used a speedometer on a bicycle, it's basically the same design, and the transmitter allows you to set the rotational length so that wherever you put this, for example, I tried putting it on the inside of the tire here as a test, and I'll show you wherever you put this, it uses a little infrared light, or what looks like infrared, and of course it would need to be mounted, but it needs to be mounted so close that this style setup, which is what they recommend vaguely in the instructions, would not work with a 5th scale. There's no way, because there's just too much play in the wheel itself to where this is eventually going to get hit and ripped off, because it literally has to be so close. And as you know, you also have to set the rotational length. There's no diagram or mathematical equation that tells you how to figure out the rotational length. All they give you in the transmitter is a little box that asks you to put in the length in inches. And it's not as easy as simply measuring the circumference of the tire and typing that in, unfortunately. So there's that. And where to mount it is beyond me. I've been looking at options, for example, in there inside the hub, maybe mounting it right here, very close to that, because there's not much movement in there. I'm really at a loss with that. So that's the optical speed sensor. Then you have, sorry about all the, I'm doing this with my phone last minute. My wife is ready to go into labor any minute, and I'm basically just killing time. Oh, the magnetic speed sensor. This one here gives you this and two tiny magnets. In the diagram, they use the same style setup as they tell you to for the optical. They say to mount the magnet on the inside of the hub, yet they show the sensor on the outside of the wheel in a position like this. Then they tell you in the same sentence that they need to be only 2 millimeters apart in order for it to work. Well, with a magnet mounted on the inside of this hub and the sensor out here, it's definitely not going to be 2 millimeters apart. So that's a problem. The one thing I did find in all of the videos I looked through was somebody that had a fifth scale or an FSIT4 and was installing the telemetry. He recommended, because it's magnetic and this is going to measure RPM, you're going to use this to measure RPM, so you'll have both speed and RPM on your on the transmitter. The magnet on the actual flywheel could be used to have that sensor work. Of course, this is a nice CNC milled casing, and the last thing I want to do is drill any holes through it. There is some access behind here that would give you kind of a perpendicular angle on the flywheel, so that I don't know that would work. And again, this is the SCZ 29.5cc reed engine. You can also access the coil or the flywheel through this opening here. This is actually the coil. You can access it through there, but keep in mind, chances are I'm going to have to take this off and see if I can figure out how to mount it so that I can use the magnet that's on the flywheel, and I imagine that would work. But again, mounting this rubber piece of wire in a position where it's not going to come off or be jostled loose, it's just not going to be easy. Of course, you have other options. You have your transmission shaft there that runs across. I was actually going to use that for the speed sensor. I was going to mock it and mount the speed sensor there, but you have your drive shafts, but they're silver, so you'd have to basically make sure they were painted black if you were going to use that for the optical, and then leave one spot of it silver so they could actually see the difference. As far as the magnetic setup is concerned, I don't see any way you could use the wheel and tire. I just don't. It just makes sense to use the coil, if that'll work. And that should give me, of course, it wouldn't even make sense to have an RPM sensor that's operating from the rear wheels. So an accurate RPM sensor would be hooked up to the actual coil in the engine, which is not going to be easy. I'm just not looking forward to it. I know I'm complaining a lot here, guys, but I always get myself into stuff that I really just don't feel like doing somehow. But yeah, so then there's of course the task of mounting all these without this rig looking like a science project and having it look clean. So if you're thinking about buying the Flysky IT4S because you want to have all that telemetry, and in the end it'll be really nice, but just know that it's a bit of a task, and there's really not much out there on the internet as far as how to hook this stuff up. I've watched videos that are in French, that are in German, you name it, and I still really haven't found any answers. And of course, contacting them, I imagine that's probably just a waste of time. So the product itself, I'm digging it. I'm impressed with it, and I'm looking forward to having all that the telemetry on the receiver or on the transmitter. So I will figure this out. Just know that. And in the end, when the video's done or when the truck's done, I'll do a finished up video and show you guys what I was able to come up with. I'm sure somebody else will probably put their own twist on it as far as a fifth scale setup is concerned. But at the moment, this is where I'm at with all this. So if you have any comments, any help, any suggestions, let me know. I'm definitely open-minded right now and open for suggestions, that's for sure. So again, thanks for watching. As far as the G5 is concerned, I have the panels down here. I've got the holes drilled out, and some of them are like partially mounted because unfortunately when I drilled my holes, I couldn't use the dimples that they had in the actual Lexan. They were all off, every one of them. But when I drilled my holes, somehow I have a few of them that are off, so I have to go ahead and mill out those holes to make sure that they're lined up right so I can put in all the screws properly before I start laying down paint. I don't want to be messing with that stuff after I paint it. And then I'll start laying down the graphics, and of course get the liquid mask laid down. This thing's going to be sick when it's done, guys. I'm telling you right now, this paint job's going to definitely stir up some shit. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching.